Hi, I'm Sharon McGukin with Oasis Floral Products, and after soaking our foam in water, we begin to build the foundation of our design. The purpose of the foam is to secure the flowers in the container with a reservoir of water around them. Using our floral foam, this Max Life foam is already pre-marked to different measurements. It might be a third block to fit into a small container. It might be 2/3 block and a little larger, or even a full block in a larger container. We also might consider using a half block in a container such as this, so we can follow the marks to cut it. To do this, we need to use a sharp knife, and then to secure it into our container, our waterproof tape as well. Now, when it comes to foam, sometimes it fits perfectly, sometimes we need to cut it down to a specific size for a container. For example, I've taken a third block and cut it in half to give me the appropriate size of foam for my arrangement. I typically like for my foam to be about 1 inch to 1.5 inches taller than the container. Unless it's a really large design and I need a lot of room for flowers, then I can judge that proportionally. I also want to consider the volume of flowers in my design. Sometimes the foam might not be quite tall enough, so I can take an extra piece and slide it into the bottom of my container and add the foam on top to give me that inch, 1.5 inches I'm looking for. As I create my designs, I like to taper my foam. I take the block and I cut away just a little bit of the foam. The reason for this is that when you insert a stem into the foam, you stop when it feels secure. So if the foam is in a square, we have a tendency to stop. If it's rounded, as it is in this particular container, then it feels a little more secure when you round it out. So that's the purpose of angling those edges. Now I've done that in this particular design, and I also added the grid of tape across the foam. The reason for that is that by adding the tape, you secure it to the container. A lot of times I see people coming with an X across the center of the foam. That blocks your center point for the central axis of your design. So you want to come in and make more of a tic-tac-toe grid across your foam, as I'm doing in this particular one. I go 2 in one direction and 1 in another, just to make my foam secure in the container, leaving that space around the outside for water to source the flowers. In this particular container, I needed to add extra foam, because if I just took one piece of foam and added it into my container, it wouldn't be easy to secure it. So I added to it some extra pieces. I took 1 block of foam and put it into the center. Then I took another block of foam and I cut it in half, making 2 pieces. I also took my knife and angled off the bottom of the foam, because the bottom of my container is more narrow than the top of my container. Now I have these additional pieces that I can add into the container, pressing on either side. A lot of times I'll need to take and cut off just a little bit of extra if my foam isn't quite easily secured into it. Maybe one side I didn't get the point as sharp as the other. Another thing I like to do on a large arrangement is to add either poultry wire or floral mesh to the top of my design. You'll notice I kind of cut out the edges on the side, so that allows me to press them together and secure it over the foam. Again, just as I did before, I want to add the tape over, waterproof tape over the foam, and I always try to add it over where the seams are to give a little bit more security to that. This helps to secure my designs. This is especially effective if you have really large urns for wedding designs and you need to make them a little more secure in the foam. So as we look at this, we find that the purpose of adding our saturated with water foam into our containers is that we want to be sure that our flowers are secure, they have water around the reservoir, and that the size of the foam is appropriate to the number of flowers that we're going to put into our design. I'm Sharon McGukin with Oasis Floral Products, and I hope if you need more information about foam or tips and techniques about flowers, you'll visit our website, oasisfloralproducts.com.